Hey guys, this is Nick Page from the Landscape Photography Podcast, and you are listening to the Irish Photography Podcast.
I don't know who you are, but welcome to the Irish Photography Podcast. Sit back, relax, and listen about cameras, gear, settings, stories, and all things photography. Join Dermot and Darren on Ireland's Best Photography Podcast. Let's go.
And you're very welcome to episode 169 of the Irish Photography Podcast. My name is Darren, I'm your host, and I'm joined by somebody, and I'm delighted to welcome him back again to the podcast. It's Peter Gordon from Irish Light. Peter, how are you, buddy?
Thanks, Darren. I'm all good. Very kind to have me back on again. Thank you very much. How are you keeping yourself?
I'm very good now, thanks. Very good. Been busy out, you know, and I'm delighted to have you back on because I really enjoyed the conversation that we had last year. And I'm also intrigued to kind of find out how did it go last year, and more importantly, what's happening this year. So, that's the main thing that I want to discuss today. But before I even get into all of that, how have you been since we last spoke anyway?
I've been good. It's been, so would have been this time last year. So we were kind of coming out of COVID stuff. Don't mention the war. Sorry, don't mention the war. Don't mention the war. But because I run a lot of these workshops internationally and stuff, so we were fairly tied down. We were just coming out of it last time we spoke. So this year I've been traveling loads again, and been away in Morocco shooting a few weeks ago. I've done a couple of trips out to Norway this year shooting, generally just been busy with that. I had an exhibition myself, which was up there just a few weeks ago in Rathmines, so I just finished that, a project in Glendalough, and then the kind of summer turns, and then I start to think I need to get myself in order for Irish Light again. It's like I don't know if you find it yourself, but my year anyway is sort of like it's compartmentalized into, photography wise.
Yeah.
You know what's right. I'm chasing the snow and the ice now. It's November or it's February or something like that. And then the summer for me is a bit more chilled. There's not many workshops, and I don't know why I'm obviously a bit stupid because I've decided I'd take up golf as well.
Wow.
So I've been hitting some golf balls a bit in my spare time in the summer, and just having a little bit more of a chilled time. It's doing the 50, 60 hours a week on the photography. My wife said, you need something. You need to
Yeah, you need a hobby.
Yeah, you need a hobby, basically. Yeah.
and you know what? I mean, it's interesting you say it. They're coming back out of the time that we've all experienced over the last number of years. I say it felt great to be able to go on the international trips again. And of course, you got to meet up with Thor. So, you had the crack as well then, obviously, with him as well, yeah?
Absolutely. Look, it was so nice to get back at it and be able to do it. And like you say, Thor is a good mate of mine, a guy we run workshops with, and Darren, another guy I work with, and Dino and Michael. So a few guys that do stuff with, and they're mates, they're good lads. So I would have seen the Irish boys obviously through all this, but I hadn't hooked up with Thor in ages. And so we had great crack. We had three trips together up in Norway this year. We kind of joked that in the winter time we see more of each other than we see of our wives, basically. So we're the married couple, basically. We joke when we're away. It's like, who's doing the laundry that you didn't put the dishes away, Thor? So we have those standard domestic situations over the few weeks, but it's good crack. Great man, top man. A couple of beers and a bit of a chill in the evenings and a good chat. Top man.
That's what it's all about, boy. That's what it's all about. We go take the photographs with our camera, with the memories that are in our heads, and the people that we meet are the ones that create the memories. So Thor's a great guy, I mean, as you know, I've had him as a guest on the podcast a couple of times, and always a sound guy to talk to, and always, fun as well. So I'm sure the laughs were mighty between the pair of you anyway, as it is.
No, that's it. There's no question. The crack is always mighty. The crack is definitely always mighty.
Happy days. So let's move on, I suppose, to the Irish Light. And before we get into this year, I kind of want to do a recap and kind of go full circle of what we would have done from last year. So, if anybody hasn't listened to that podcast, we had a conversation. We went through in relation to what to expect, what was coming up with the whole contest that was being run, with the big day and everything else. So the first question I have for you on that is, who won it last year?
Ruben Fields won it last year, and with some stunning images. I mean, the quality of the work was fantastic, and the overall winner, Ruben, had 3 images. So when we had a sort of single image award, but we decided a couple of years ago that to get the overall prize. It's not that some people can make a great image, but there's a difference between making one great image
Consistency.
and consistency, and it was a great prize. It was a Nikon Z7 II, so it's obviously worth a good few grand. And we just sort of felt, well, not even just because of the monetary value of the prize, just that it separates out, who can really do it.
Yeah,
levels
it up,
so I thought that was great, and he had some stunning work. I'm trying to, off the top of my head, he had stuff from down in Kerry and the Gap of Dunlow. He had another image from Derry Clare Lough, another image from Dingle, I think it was, but stunning Irish landscapes. And I guess it was interesting as well to see, the different styles of what, we had different people. I think Paul Byrne had an image that won as well, and that was a sort of a more architectural, minimal sort of black and white image. Ruben's style, I guess, would be more sort of epic and colourful, and that's ultimately what rose to the top. And it was interesting as well. We did discuss last year. We had people like Joel Tinchlar and Rachel Talibart judging. Who would be of that more sort of the arty end of the presentation of the landscape versus the colourful end of things, let's say. Not to say that the colourful end of it isn't artistic, but it's different. Do you know what I mean? It's different. It's more literal or something, So we had the range of judges with the different styles, but Ruben rose to the challenge, and stunning images, and well-deserved winner.
Yeah, Ruben is a legend. I mean, I've known of Ruben a number of years, and every single image that he produces, I always go, wow. And I mean, I went on a trip with him a few years ago, actually, to Snowdonia, and a sound guy, I mean, that's the key thing, I think, for me, is that you can have a chat with him, but what he produces are phenomenal images. So yeah, a worthy winner.
And I would say, just to add to it as well, Felix Brawl was like the two boys were like neck and neck with the portfolio. I mean, I think I'd need to look at the spreadsheet to see the breakdown of all the points, but there was 7 or 8 judges, 100 points each, and there was only a few points between them. Do you know what I mean? Like, so it was like it was so marginal. So it could have been either of the boys, to be honest, that could have won it. But both great lads. But that's someone has to get the overall thing. That's how it goes,
Yeah, for sure. And Felix is another legend as well. So two good guys, I suppose.
Absolutely, yeah.
And then another part of the Irish Light Festival is the big day. Now, unfortunately, I couldn't make it, and I'm gutted that I couldn't make it. But tell us what happened on the big day. What was the big day?
Yeah, well, the big day, hopefully you can make it this year, Darren. I'm definitely gonna lash you on the old guest list anyway, and hopefully you can see us there. So the big day is a series of talks, really. I guess a good few years ago now, I was feeling that we don't get the international speakers into Ireland. We've some great landscape photographers in Ireland, and we're blessed to have that, but it's nice to get a little bit of a chat or an interaction with someone that you don't normally see, right?
Yes.
So that's what the big day is all about, is a day of inspiration for us landscape photographer lovers, speaking with people that you don't normally get to speak with and see, really. So last year was a great success. We had a good few attendees. We had lovely lads. Jesus, my mind is drawing a blank for 2 seconds. That's terrible. We had Mark Littlejohn. Over from the UK. This year we also have Paul Kenny coming from the UK, but we're bringing Nick Page over from the States. So Nick would probably be, I know you do great stuff on YouTube, so you would be, I'm sure, aware of Nick, or probably anyone who's into landscape photography is probably aware of Nick.
Yeah, I mean, Nick will be a great draw from that. I mean, I was chatting to Nick, actually. He was telling me he was coming over. I thought you booked him a long time ago, which is great to see that he's, got that done. And I've actually had Nick on the podcast as well. Nick is an absolute legend. And I think, I kind of want to get into more in relation to what's going to happen this year. And that's kind of a good tee into that, because Nick is doing a very interesting talk, I think, which a lot of people will get a lot of benefit from. Tell us about what Nick is going to do this year.
Well, he's going to do two different things actually for us this year. He's going to do a single day workshop.
Okay.
And the workshop is going to be around luminosity masking. Okay. I think when I I don't know how your experience is with it, Darren, or how you feel about it. When I mention luminosity masks to people, I can see them going, Jesus, don't say it. Don't use the word. Don't choose the word. And then you can see the fear in the eyes, you know?
Yeah, their eyes glaze over.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. So look, and I get it. It's a tricky thing to get a handle on. But Nick would be a real expert in that field as well in terms of his processing. So he's going to teach a thing on luminosity masking, and not just luminosity masking, but how you actually edit, how Nick Page edits with luminosity masking, and what that looks like. So he's going to do a full dedicated workshop day on that, which hopefully should be great. And then the title of his talk is "Moment, Movement, and Energy in Landscape Photography." So that'll be at the big day. So that'll be around an hour and a half presentation that he'll do at the big day. And yeah, we had a bit of a chat about it. I mean, I would always feel I would never try and guide any of the speakers that are coming over in terms of, you know, what they're doing. I would just book the people on the strength of who they are as people and the quality of their work, and you would have obviously have a sense of seeing them on YouTube and they're good orators and all that sort of stuff. But Nick has come up with that title, and I guess really what he's, you know, some of his work, as I'm sure you're as aware of as I am, has that energy, you know, where he just captures that moment. Like it could be the lightning, it could be those incredible clouds that you see him chasing, the wave, bang, you know. It's excuse me. So that's the focus of his talk for this year. So that should be really, really interesting. And yeah, I'm looking forward to hear what he has to say. And I'm also, I have to say, happy that he's kind of come back and given us a title, even though sometimes I wouldn't, as I said, I don't want to be rude and try and go, you know, nail people into something or whatever, you know, but he's kind of given that, which is a nice thing, that people know that there's going to be a specific theme about what he's going to present, you know.
Well, you know, you've mentioned a couple of things here, which really, as you even said the title, I thought of images from Nick. And, you know, even you said with the wave images there, the bird detail that's in the wave images. And I might say the wave, but you've got a bird that makes it. And I'm like, okay, that is compelling. You want to explore that image. And I mean, it's not only one thing to be able to take that shot, to be there at the right time, but I think the key point here, which is even more beneficial, is how do you edit it? Because, you know, as you will know, the sliders on Lightroom and Photoshop aren't designed to go to 10, guys. You know, they do go to 10, but don't bring them to 10, because if you have to bring them to 10, you've made a mistake, you know?
Yeah, absolutely.
And I think like with Nick's style of editing, and I've often, you know, tuned into his videos and I'm looking and I'm going, wow, never thought of that. And, you know, I could have edited 1,000 images or 2,000 images, but you'll always find something additional. So I think he's going to be a phenomenal guest to be able to have on the big day as well, because whoever attends that will not only see the legend, but also hear the legend firsthand and how he does
stuff. Yeah. And I think honestly with it, Darren, again, I'm interested to hear what you think about it, but you know, like there's lots of great photographers out there, you know, but there's a difference sometimes between a great photographer and someone who can communicate their ideas to people, you know, and they are two different skills, right?
Absolutely.
You know, and I feel like Nick has both skills, and I know he does, because we've done workshops together online already, you know, and I've sat there and listened to him talk for hours, and he's just a great communicator. On top of being, you know, the great photographer.
Yeah. You know, something you said there actually, which just only came to the top of my head right now, is if you think back to the days when we were shooting in film, right? And, you know, you could be a great photographer, but the reality is that, you know, editing, you might have sent to a lab and they'll do the editing for you. So you could be a great photographer, but you also need to be a great editor. And the two of them are so linked together, but if one goes the opposite direction, then you end up potentially with a great image, which is no longer a great image. Either it was taken wrong and you try and fix it through editing, or it was taken right and you over-edited it. So I think the two of them, they're so intertwined, it's insane. And then, you know, the third thing you mentioned about somebody being able to explain it in a way that somebody can actually pick it up and go, that makes sense. It's speaking in the language that the audience will understand. And I think that's a key point. You know, when we were all in school, we had teachers that would talk in a way that they understood, and you'd gloss over like the luminosity master. And you'd be afraid to ask the question. And am I the only one that doesn't get this? You know what I mean? Whereas if you go, hang on a second here, this is how you do it. This is what it does. And here, I'll just show you, if you go a bit too far, you don't need to go that far. And then that's going to be a great one. So yeah, Nick is a great speaker to have and a guest to have as well. Who else have you got?
So we have Paul Kenny. So Paul is probably less well known amongst the sort of the landscape photography community, but Paul Kenny would be well known to me and to lots of people as an artist, a photographic artist. He'd have had his stuff. I think he had some. He was in Mayo. He had an arts residency here in Ireland before. He's been invited to the Royal Hibernian Academy to exhibit in.
Nice.
He's had stuff in all the big galleries in London and the UK, and he does this underwater rock pool shots, collages, and he mixed media, and like the work is, again, it's definitely not as immediately, doesn't have that wow factor that Nick's work has. For me, it does, honestly, but I know like online and stuff, it won't have as much of that initial boom, here's that wave power sort of stuff going on, but his work spans over the last 40 or 50 years, and he's a great orator from what I understand. It was Mark Littlejohn. I knew of Paul's work, but Mark Littlejohn said, look, he's a great speaker as well. He's actually a brilliant speaker. And I guess what I'm genuinely looking for when I'm trying to put this together is that bit of that mix. Like I don't want all the landscape photography to be the same, because I think that's boring. For me anyway, it is. So you're looking for sort of that bit of that blend of, here's something that's a bit more unusual, a bit more abstract, a bit more question what this is sort of situation. And here's one that's just, exactly what it is, and it's just pure energy, and, it gives you something totally different. We've also got Nick on School coming over from the UK again.
Very good.
And they're sponsoring the competition again, which is great. So Neil Freeman from Nick on School is actually going to give a talk about the generation of mirrorless cameras and the development of mirrorless technology, basically. So again, it's to try and find, gives another avenue.
Absolutely, yeah. And plus, you're appealing to even more of an audience as well. If you had it just as everybody was doing the same thing, I don't want to say it would become monotonous, because it won't, but it kind of, in a way, it's okay. We're talking about the same thing, but in a different way of talking about it. Whereas if you've got, Nick, okay, then you've got Paul, and then you've got Nick on School, you've got three topics here, which are all linked again, but they're totally different. So I think it's a great thing to have in there. Yeah.
Well, thanks. I'm glad you see it that way. That is how I think about it anyway. And I think Neil, for example, in Nick on School, I mean, I know that, for example, I'm always taking the piss with the different cameras and the different things. It's an ongoing joke on the workshops, who's shooting what. But like realistically, I mean, it really doesn't, it's about what you pointed at, not what you pointed at with. Anyway, aside from that, he would have, for example, access to the Z8 before, anybody's getting access to the Z8, and he would be embedded in respect of Nikon in terms of the technology and seeing all the different movements within the industry. So that's why I think that's an interesting talk, because he's uniquely placed actually to give us that talk about the technology and how it changes. Because even though we can say, it doesn't matter what you're pointing with, we're all into our cameras a bit. We enjoy our cameras,
absolutely.
Like, let's be honest about it.
Absolutely.
So I think that would be good. And then for People's Sins, I will also be presenting a talk this year, because I did a new project called In a Different Light this year, and I was basically wandering around Glendalough for about 10 years with my video light at nighttime, they're not. I don't think I can call them traditional nighttime photography. They're a little bit unusual, and I've done a time lapse piece to go with that. So I thought it would be nice again to have a local interest sort of piece as well. It's Glendalough, but it's Glendalough like you've never seen it before, basically. And again, that's what I would typically be striving for is that to try and, whether it's the big day and the range of talks or my own work, I'm a devil for getting bored, I would say.
You need diversity.
I need diversity, and I need to just keep kind of go with new stuff or go to new places, or
Isn't that evolution though, really? You know, I mean, if you don't evolve, you kind of turn into the dinosaurs and become extinct, you know. So you kind of have to evolve. And even if you think actually, how in the last 10 years, not only has our style of photography evolved, but our gear has evolved and how we process it has evolved. The tools that we use to process the images have evolved. So you have to kind of keep going and keep changing, keep challenging yourself and, you know, your approach to photography. That's in my opinion anyway. I don't know what you think about that.
Absolutely. I mean, yeah, it's all. But when we stop evolving, that's when we're in trouble, right? So,
Yes. Yeah.
and I don't know. Personally, I give myself a hard time about it sometimes. If I feel I've stood still a little bit, or I was joking about I've taken up a bit of golf, and I'm like, geez, I'm playing too much golf. I need to, you know, I've edited this the same way. Okay, I'm going to go and like go somewhere 2 o'clock in the morning and just try and like, mix things up for myself and
Yeah. Yeah.
challenge yourself basically. So hopefully, yeah, with the big day, people get that challenge and that bit of that dedication for giving them something unique.
And tell me, when is the big day? We're going to get to the contest in a moment, but when is
Yeah,
the big day?
now I'm going to just make sure I don't make an arse of this. So I'm just going to just open mic. I knew what the date it was, but I just didn't want to.
It's in September sometime
Yeah, I
anyway.
didn't want to mess it up. I was going to use a word that began with F, but I thought that would be inappropriate
Pick
for
it
the
up.
podcast. So September 24th, September
September
24th in the Royal Marine in Dunleary. There is a sale price on the tickets at the moment out until the 30th of June. I'm not sure when this will
This will
come
be
out.
going out before the 30th of
Yeah,
June. Yeah.
so until the 30th of June, people can get, I think it's €69 for the full day of talks up in
Very good.
Dunleary. That's
Very
it.
good.
Yeah.
Very good. And what time does it start at?
Starts at 10 o'clock in the morning, normally the first talk, and then we'll have people typically arrive a little bit earlier because we'll have Nick on there.
Okay.
And we'll have cons cameras there, and they'll have bits of gear and a few discounts on the day. So sometimes people, like we say, we love our cameras, so
Yeah.
people like to come in and peruse the
Yeah.
gear as well before going into the talks. So probably people will arrive earlier, but talks will start at 10.
So if you're going to the big day, pack your gas into your bag, bring it with you, but leave a space for filling what you're going to purchase at the big show. Yeah.
There you go. Exactly. Exactly.
Right. So now the main part, I suppose, in relation to, from last year's and this year's, and the thing that's consistent is the contest that you have. And I think it's a phenomenal contest. The concept, as we spoke about last year, has evolved over the last number of years, So tell me, what's the criteria for entries for 2023?
Well, really, the main criteria is that it's pictures of the Irish landscape.
Okay.
We're looking for Irish landscape pictures. I believe it's they need to be taken in the last 3 to 4 years. I need to double check my rule book. I wasn't expecting the criteria for me to reel it out, but it's there. It's in the last 3 or 4 years. We're looking for the best Irish landscapes every year is essentially what we're looking for. And we're looking for them from the hobbyist community rather than the professional community, because I guess I feel it's like landscape photography. We were joking about it being a job or being a hobby earlier, and it is a hobby for most people.
It is.
We're trying to keep it within that sphere. That sometimes can be a bit of a murky area. But that's our goal, at least, is for it to be that part of the criteria. The competition is going to be open until about mid-September. I think it's €20 to enter 10 images, or €4 or €5 an image, so it's not expensive in terms of what a lot of competitions would charge you to enter. And we have a Nikon Z7 too, again, as a prize. So we have a really great prize for the overall winner.
Very good.
We're looking again this year for the overall winner to be the best 3 images, basically. So, for example, you would need to enter at least 3 to be eligible for that, for the top prize. And like we were chatting about previously, it's just a thing to not just get the best once-off photographer, but to get the most consistent photographer, as well as and they'll also the most consistent. I don't mean to play that down as well, in terms of that they could potentially have the best once-off shot too, and most of the time they'd have one of their shots would be in the group of the best single shots too. So that's what's happening. We're hoping that we get thousands of pictures in again, like we have over the last few years, and We have a great set of judges again. We have some of the people that were over last year have gone out. Rachel Talibert, for example, can't do it, unfortunately, this year. She's away. But we do have Isabella Tabachi back in again.
Very good.
We have Nick Page in doing this year too. We have Paul Kenny. We have Joel Tinchlar. We have Thor. We have myself. So we have a bit of an Irish aspect to it, but it's mostly an international gang of
Hello.
judges again, yeah,
Yeah. Yeah.
and well-renowned international people, you know.
And I suppose that's a good thing because, you know, there's no bias there. So there's going to be seeing areas that they may not have seen. Like, okay, I know that's Glendalough. You know, that's not going to be the case in relation to them. They're seeing it effectively for the first time. Can people enter astro images?
Yes, absolutely. And look, do you know what I would love to, because this comes up occasionally with the questions and stuff. I would love that we were big enough that we had like a dedicated astro, a dedicated a drone category, for example, because astro and daytime, that's so different types of photography for sure. But just I think with the size of us as a country, because we're talking about Irish landscape images here, you know, and we do have obviously people visiting and photographing here, but we don't have, you know, we don't have millions and millions of photographers like they do in the States or something like
Yeah.
that, you know, where
Yeah.
the entries
Yeah.
would be so vast that you could have
Such a variety going
such
through
a
it. Or
right.
lot.
But
Yeah.
this is our thing for Ireland, you know. So we've done the best in terms of getting good judges in, good prizes, and then within that though we just feel, yeah, the astro will be in the same category, the general landscape will be in the same category, and drones or whatever, you know.
Okay.
Yeah,
Okay.
so that's kind of how it goes.
And I suppose one other question that's just come into mind right now in relation to, you know, how natural does the photograph have to be? So composites, an example.
So I actually changed the rule this year, and I said that you can't. I don't want images where skies have been replaced from a different time.
Okay.
So I actually put a rule in there on that this year. That wasn't in there previously because, yeah, I mean, I'm not one for. I don't overly manipulate my own images. I mean, I do blend, I dodge and burn and contrast. I mean, I spent a lot of time editing my pictures, but I don't generally, you know, replace significant elements that weren't there. And I don't have a problem with that, you know, at all. Uh, but at the same time, I don't think that that's a totally true reflection of the landscape when people do that. And I was just made aware that that was happening in some of the pictures, and I just decided to put in a rule this year that there's no problem blending, you know, merging files together. That's all a normal part of our craft, I think, you
Yeah.
know.
Yeah.
But I do think it is different taking, you know, the blue sky that's outside my window right now and merging it into the cloudy day that comes tomorrow. I don't think there's anything wrong with it, but
Not for the contest.
not for the contest,
Yeah.
basically.
And I suppose there's one other new one now as well, which won't have been there from last year, which has only started to really raise its head, which is two-letter word
Oh
AI.
yes, yes, yeah.
So
Well, that's a very good point to raise, and I actually might put a stipulation in about that you've raised it. I didn't think of it there, but that's a really really good point.
yeah.
You know,
Yeah.
and that's obviously been big news with that photographer that won and then
Yeah. Yeah.
pulled out, and yeah,
Yeah.
said it's all AI.
Yeah, and you know what I mean. Look, it's some of them will be a complete giveaway. Pyramids of the Cliffs of Moher. Oh wow, when did I
Yeah,
put those up last week?
yeah,
But you know, there are other areas as well where there's subtlety in relation to it, and I think it's just important that you know we want to be able to see people from what their image is and how good they are as a photographer, and not just how good they are at manipulating or a computer is manipulating an idea or a vision, let's just say. You know, I
yeah,
think, I mean, what I like about the contest is that it's an opportunity for us to showcase how good Ireland is,
yeah,
what great talent we have within Ireland, what great locations we have, the different, you know, vibrancy of the skies, the massive waves that we have. You know, Nick Page there in his west coast of America. Okay, we've got that here too.
yeah,
You
yeah,
know,
yeah,
so
yeah.
like it's time to showcase it. So I think this year will be another interesting one for the variety of images that come through. And I think with the photographers that are there, it's easy in a way to go down the shortcut route, but you're better off to keep it in regards to the skills that are there as a photographer and don't let a computer take the credit.
Absolutely. And you know what, just as you were saying it, it was occurring to me that I did put in the stipulation into the rules this year that I may require a viewing of the raw files, that you may need to provide the raw files.
Okay.
So I think that's a good way to actually, just thinking about it on the fly, that's a good way to mitigate
Yes.
regarding the AI aspect of things.
Yeah,
you know.
absolutely. Absolutely.
But I totally agree with you. At the same time, with it, I mean, art is art to me. You know, like, I don't have any issue with anybody doing any of the different bits that they do with their pictures. I guess I think what's probably just important is just that people are open and they say this is what it is, and,
Absolutely.
and then that's all fair game. I think, you know.
Yeah, 100%, 100%. And look, I think, like I say, we've got so many talented photographers in Ireland already as it is, that it'll be great now to be able to see what's been produced over the last year, or as you say, the last 2 or 3 years, may not have entered into it. Some people may not have entered a contest before. I think this is a great opportunity for people to enter a contest. It's not expensive, as you say. There are a number of contests out there that are extremely expensive to enter. This isn't. So if somebody has never entered a contest before, might not take the opportunity to enter one in Ireland, Irish Light, and you never know, you could be the next Ruben Fields with a Nikon Z7 II in your bag after
absolutely,
that.
absolutely. Well, appreciate that, Darren. And like you say, I mean, some of them are 20 quid an image to enter. Do you know what I mean? And when you want to enter 10 images,
exactly.
you
And
know, it gets expensive quick, you know.
Yeah, absolutely. So look, if people haven't done it before, what a great opportunity to lose your cherry and and enter a contest. What better than the Irish Light contest this year? So
can I use that line, Darren, in at the
if you
intro
want,
of the page? This is a chance to lose your cherry. I've got a good one. Let me tell you a good one there in that respect. Just a funny thing about a description of photography that somebody said at a workshop, which I thought was very funny anyway. And he said, Jesus, photography is just like sex. Small movements make all the difference. Well, so you can edit that in or out. I don't know, will that stay?
I'll leave it in. I made a podcast, and the headline of the podcast was 6 inches makes all the difference.
We're digressing. We're digressing.
Exactly. So, listen, look, the final thing I have to ask you is, where can people enter their images, and where can people buy tickets for the big day?
So if they want to check things out, they can find Irish Light on Facebook or Instagram, or the website is irishlight.ie. And just go on there, and all the bits are there. As I said, the 30th of June is coming up for the early bird tickets, and that's it. We'd be delighted to see people there. It's a good day out for the community as well, like people meeting, mingling, chatting. Like the eyes glaze over sometimes when we talk to our partners or to our friends, and we start talking about photography. At least you're there with the crew, and everybody's into it, so it's
like-minded individuals.
Exactly.
All right. So Peter, listen, look, it's been an absolute pleasure talking to you. Thank you very much for giving us the update on last year and the insights to this year. I think it's going to be once again another phenomenal festival. I think I wish you the best of luck in relation to the organization of it. I know it's not easy. There's a lot of work involved in getting it done and getting it over the line. Never mind say after today, but even prior to today. But fair play to you for coming on again and giving us the fantastic insight into your great festival, the Irish Light Festival.
Thank you so much, Darren. Really appreciate it.
Thanks, Peter. Talk to you soon, man. It's long before everybody.
Yeah.
Thanks for listening.
Long.
Hey guys, if you dig what you're hearing, why don't you jump over to iTunes, Spotify, or wherever you get your podcasts. Give us a 5-star rating, and don't forget to share with your friends. With all that done, we'll see you next week, and remember, keep shooting.